NRI now returned to India, written and narrated by Amar Vyas.
Chapter 2. The First Missteps. Wake up! I've made tea for you. I thought it was a dream. Wake up, Amol. Baba's voice was the last thing I expected to hear after a restless night and a disturbed sleep. What time is it? I asked, opening my eyes. It's 5:15 in the morning. Get up, he replied. Baba, I'm not a tea drinker. I prefer black coffee. But it was no use complaining. The tea is getting cold, Baba said again. Baba had always been an early riser. It was a habit that he had developed from his younger days when he was growing up on a farm. More than half a century later, he still liked to have his tea early in the morning. Before his retirement, Baba would wake up at 5 a.m. and leave for work at 9. How he had managed to spend 4 hours getting ready for work day after day has remained a mystery to me. I, on the other hand, had always been a late riser. In Baba's book, she was a Suryavanshi, or someone who woke up after the sun rose. An hour later, I stepped out of the house for a walk in the park next to where we lived. I heard a voice calling my name from across the park. Amol! It was Lalit. As he came up to me, he asked, What are you doing up so early? I've been up since 5:30, I said. Jet lag? He asked. No, Baba. I told him what had happened. Welcome home, he laughed, and he began to tell me what life in India was all about. After a while, he realized that he had engaged in a monologue far too long. Acha, listen, I have to go now. But sham ko ghar pe aaja. Lata is going to make pav bhaji. Hey, I'll be there, thanks, I said. Lalit's wife was known for her culinary skills, and I was not going to miss her signature dish. It had been nearly 2 years since I had last eaten pav bhaji. I had driven 20 miles to Devon Avenue in Chicago, which was almost the home for the homesick Indian. Sukhadia, the restaurant where I had devoured it, had a friendly Gujju uncle at the cash counter, but not so friendly fellow customers. The food was good, and the unpainted walls had crates of thumbs up stacked up against them. The scene represented a simplicity and a vintage that reminded me of the Irani hotels in Mumbai. By 8 a.m., I had showered, shaved, and had my second cup of coffee. Dressed in neatly ironed khaki pants, a light blue shirt, and brown leather shoes, I stepped outside the house and walked up to the nearest auto rickshaw stand. Dhole Patil Road, I told the auto driver. It was the first and the only time that my commute to work would be so effortless. 15 minutes later, we had reached Karve Road and were heading towards Deccan Gymkhana. The traffic was slowly building up, as was the heat. As the auto rickshaw neared the intersection with Law College Road, the driver switched on some loud, irritating music. Some things never change, I thought to myself. During my college days, anyone who played loud music would be instantly labelled a rickshawala. Those were the days when the music directors Nadeem and Shravan and a singer called Kumar Sanu were the rage. They had this new addition to their songs called Jhankar beats. For some unfathomable reason, the autowalas seemed to like them the most. I had asked the auto driver to turn down the volume. As he turned left from Karve Road onto Deccan Gymkhana, I said to him, "Aao bhau, आवाज थोड़ा कमी करा." "साहेब, नवीन गाना है ये, लई hit हो गया है, वैशाली सावंत singing है." He told me that the singer was somebody called Vaishali Sawant, whose song had topped the charts. Which charts, I did not know, and nor did I care. All I knew was that a woman with a very shrill voice was narrating the story of a hen that was running away from someone. It was a shame that Marathi music had not evolved beyond its fascination for birds. In the late 1980s, there was this song about some parrot that had fallen in love with a neighbor's Maina. One could hear this song all over the place. That was nearly 2 decades ago, and now the parrot had been replaced by a hen. But the woman's singing seemed melodious compared to the cacophony that was around me as the auto rickshaw zigzagged from Jangli Maharaj Road towards the engineering college building and inched its way past the RTO office towards the railway station. I now began to see some familiar signs. There was this building on the left where one went to submit the papers for a US visa. One had to submit the application there before the pilgrimage to the US consulate in Mumbai. A little beyond that was a left turn near a pizza shop which led into a lane. At the end of this lane was my destination, City Tower Building. The journey to the office had lasted nearly an hour and I was late for my work on the very first day. My office in Chicago used to start at 8, but I would always reach by 7:30. If I had to go to the construction site, I would leave home by 7 and would talk to a few suppliers and the foremen as I drove. That gave all of us an hour's head start for things that could make or break the day's work. I thought it was a good practice and I should continue this habit here in India. But it would soon dawn upon me that people in India prefer to come late to work and stay up late in the evenings. Surprisingly, everything seemed very quiet inside the building. An office complex should have been buzzing with activity by now. As I stepped into the elevator, I was surprised to find that I was the only occupant besides the attendant. "Third floor, please. KMM ka office," I told the attendant. I felt sorry for him. He was performing one of the most thankless, brain-numbing jobs in the world. He had to spend all day in a 6-foot by 6-foot cab, press buttons and go up and down the same shaft several times. As we reached the third floor, an elevator came to halt with a jerk. "Thank you," I told the bewildered attendant, who was probably not used to being thanked. I walked down the hallway and turned left. Nearly 1 month ago, I had the most frustrating time in this office while I was waiting for Paresh. Today, I was going to work with him. I tried to open the glass door that led into the office. It was locked. "Sir, आपको KMM का ऑफिस जाना है? वो लोग तो न्यूक्लियस मॉल चले गए." I turned around to find a skinny lad who was approaching me. He was wearing a dark brown uniform which bore the logo and name of some company called SKS Securities. His name badge read Balwant Singh. What an irony, I thought. Parents should think twice before naming their children. The poor guy's name was Balwant, which means a strong man, and he wouldn't even be able to defend himself should the need arise. But I was not there to debate on how parents should name their children. Balwant had told me that the office had moved from this building to some place called Nucleus Mall. "Unko call karke पूछ लीजिए साहब, हमें तो इतना ही पता है," Balwant suggested. But he did not know where this mall was. The trouble was, I did not know either. Nobody had informed me that the office had moved. I did not know where Nucleus Mall was, nor did I have the new phone number to this office. I called Paresh right away, using Baba's cell phone that I had borrowed in the morning. Paresh's phone was switched off. I had no choice other than searching the location of this new place. Nucleus Mall. I told a group of auto drivers who were sitting outside the building. None of them responded. They were sitting beneath a tree in a circle and were really busy playing cards. I could also see a pile of money in the middle. Something told me that they would not be very keen on leaving their current money-making activity for another one. The former, playing cards that is, required good luck, whereas the latter, actually ferrying a passenger, needed hard work. And it was the latter that they were shying away from. An hour later, I finally found a ride and a driver who knew where Nucleus Mall was. Like every self-respecting auto rickshaw driver, he had also put on some loud music. "Ye Tashan picture ka gana super hit hai sahib," he told me. The song in the previous auto had been Lay Hit, and this one was Super Hit. Both were played so loudly that they had hit my eardrums really hard. I reached Nucleus Mall around 10:30 and walked up to the front desk of KMM's office. There was a burly guard and a petite woman behind the desk. The guard's name badge read Chotu Ram. Another shining example of a mismatch between a person's name and their personality. But I was beyond contemplating such things by now. "Hi, I'm Amol Dikshit. I start work here today," I told the girl who was busy sending a message on her cell phone. It was amazing how she managed to type on that tiny keyboard. "I'm sorry, we've not been told that someone will be joining us today," she replied. "Miss, this is frustrating. Nobody informed me that you guys had moved here, and I had a terrible time finding this place. Now you tell me that there is no mention of me joining? Can you please check with the office manager?" The girl was irritated by now. Her phone had buzzed 3 times as I was speaking. Perhaps her boyfriend had sent her messages that she needed to respond to urgently. She chose to ignore me and went back to her messaging. I called Paresh on his phone number again. There was still no response. I remembered that I had Manpreet's number as well. Following my interview with Paresh, I had communicated with him several times. I heard a busy tone when I dialed his number. I was about to call him again when my phone buzzed. "This is Amol," I said as I answered it. "Amol, this is Manpreet. Where are you? We are waiting for you." "I'm in the reception area of your new office. Nobody told me that you guys had moved." "Then ask them to let you in." "They're not letting me in, Manpreet." "What? Wait, let me do something about it," he said before he hung up. The phone at the reception desk buzzed. The girl answered it. She looked at me after a while and said, "Please have a seat. Someone will take you inside." I shook my head in disgust. I was hired as a project manager, but my treatment was worse than that of a kid straight out of college. This was so different from my first day at work at Wojak Construction. I had arrived a few minutes before 8, but the office was already alive and buzzing with activity. The friendly receptionist had welcomed me with a smile and said, "Welcome to Wojak Construction, Amor." She had mispronounced my name, calling me Amor and not Amol, but knowing that Amor means love in many languages, I took it as a compliment and I had smiled back at her. Within minutes of my arrival, Jim Wojak, the owner of the company, had come to meet me and walked me to my desk. "Hey, leave your stuff here. I'll be right back, and then let's go and meet the folks," he said. I saw that someone had placed a card on the desk which read, "Welcome to the family." There was a box which had my laptop, a box of business cards, my security badge and a mobile phone, some t-shirts, a hard hat and stationery in that box. Every minor detail had been taken care of. While I was going through the goodies, I heard Jim's voice on the public address system in the office. "This is your captain speaking. I'm very happy that Amol has joined us today. In a few minutes, let's all meet in the cafeteria. Little Lily has ordered pizza for all of us." I was surprised. There were over 100 people in that building. Pizza party at work for all of us would mean a lot of money and a lot of time. What a way to welcome a new employee. Over the next 4 hours, I had been introduced to everyone in the company, right from the directors to the project engineers. The environment was so informal and so relaxed. When I had interviewed with Wojak Construction, I had been told that Jim Wojak believed in working hard and partying harder. That day I had realized it was true. As I was lost in these thoughts, I heard someone say, "Good morning. Sorry about the confusion. Please follow me." A woman draped in a green and yellow sari was addressing me. I followed her into the office, and I wondered, looks like people here do not like to introduce themselves. Is this the culture of this company, or is this the work culture in general in India? Only time would tell. Time would tell me many more things about working in India. I was led into a large meeting room. The woman disappeared, and a server clad in a white jacket asked me, "What would you like to have, sir? Tea or coffee?" "Coffee, please. Black. Thank you," I replied, and I noticed that the server was wearing what looked like white gloves to match the white jacket. I wondered when he had last washed these gloves, for they did not look so clean. A few minutes later, another woman walked in. Good morning. I am Sudha, your HRBP. Welcome aboard." HRBP was a new term for me. I would learn later that HRBP actually meant human resources persons who cause your blood pressure to rise. "Good morning and thank you. What does HRBP mean?" I asked her. "Oh, I'm the HR business person." As Sudha started to tell me more about her role, her cell phone rang. "Yes, he is here with me. The forms are on their way. We should be done by 1 p.m. she told the person on the other side. The wall clock in the room showed that it was 11 a.m. So I would have to spend 2 hours in this room. It was going to be a slow day. "That was Manpreet. He was talking to Paresh. Someone should take you to the project office after the joining formalities have been completed," Sudha said with a faint smile. That's when it dawned upon me that I had not asked during my interview where I would be working. It was one of the many questions that I should have asked. In the days to come, I would have to pay a heavy price for not asking these questions. A few minutes later, Sudha gave me a bunch of pages that looked like some forms. The paperwork made my 10-page offer letter seem like a pocketbook. because now I was literally looking at an encyclopedia. Never sign any paperwork without reading it first. Baba and I had taught this lesson to me and my sister Natasha when we were growing up. I dutifully set about reading every line of every page in these forms. What amazed me most was that every form required a photograph. KMM's Human Resources folks had sent me a checklist of sorts with the offer letter. That list had mentioned that I was required to carry 4 photographs with me the day I joined. This list in front of me said that I was to submit 8 photographs. The first form required me to attach what they call as a fitness certificate. During my days at Wojak, I was used to submitting fitness certificates for cranes, excavators and other construction equipment. Mr. Dixit, you are officially a construction vehicle now, I said to myself, and I smiled at my own private joke. And then I began to fill the forms. 2 hours later, I was still less than halfway through the paperwork. By now, I was filling information for insurance. They needed information like date of birth, employment details, known ailments, and of course the obligatory photographs, but not just for me, but also for I and Baba. What is this fascination with photographs in India? I asked myself. The rate at which they were asking me for photos, I would need at least 100 copies very soon. Hello, are you done? Sudha asked me as she entered the room. Not quite. I have to complete this set. I pointed towards a pile of paper on my left-hand side. I had split the paperwork into 3 stacks, forms that were completed, those that I was filling, and the ones that were yet to be filled. Oh, how come it has taken so long? She asked. It's a lot of reading. Don't worry about what the forms say. It's standard stuff. I'm sure you know what it says. She shrugged as she spoke. The fact is that I do not know what is written in these forms and therefore I am reading every single word. If you could just sign them and get them ready by 1:30 p.m., it would be great. I have a lunch meeting to attend. Anyway, Rajesh will be here soon. Rajesh? Rajesh Tikku? You haven't met your teammates so far? How about Ashok ji, your project leader? I shook my head and started to fill the forms again. The next form dealt with my employment history. KMM already had my resume and they obviously had seen it and probably even run a background check on me before making me an offer. So what was the point in asking me for the same information again and again? I would learn later that people in India would submit resumes which ran into several pages, which makes the job of HR very difficult. They have to read these long documents and then copy the information onto the employment forms. Out of frustration, HR folks had passed this burden back to the applicant. Even though I had only a 1-page resume, it was futile to fight a system I was not familiar with. So instead of filling the form, I just wrote, "See attached resume" and started completing the rest of the paperwork. My concentration was broken when I heard someone say, "Sorry yaar, I got delayed. The traffic was very bad. By the way, I'm Rajesh Tikku." I noticed 3 things about Rajesh. First of all, he was short. Secondly, he practically epitomized the word rotten. And third, his face had a perpetual smile. I had a feeling that we would get along well. A few minutes later, we were on our way to the project site in his car. "So you returned from the USA, huh? How long did you work there?" Rajesh asked me. "I was there for nearly a decade," I replied. "So when did you come back to India?" "Yesterday." "Oh." Rajesh was surprised to hear my reply, but continued. "I worked in the Philippines and later in Singapore for 4 years too. I am a PMP. I almost heard him say that I am a pimp, or rather he was a pimp. If Rajesh was trying to solicit a customer for his side business, I was the wrong guy. But I realized that he was talking about the project management professional certification. I also sensed that he wanted to narrate his story first. "What type of projects were you involved with, Rajesh?" I asked. He was pleased that I had taken his hint well. "I used to work with Sembawang, building jetties, refineries and the likes." "Great," I replied. "So tell me about this project we will be working on." "Yeah, it's an interesting project. A Mumbai-based developer called Apogee Group is working with a local builder to build a project called Village Market, which is located near Hadapsar on the eastern side of Pune. This will be one of the largest projects of its kind in the country. On 30 acres of land, they will build a shopping mall, entertainment area, offices and a hospital. Totally, they will build 50 lakh square feet of building space. That's 5 million square feet for you. Our team will manage the project," Rajesh replied. So what exactly does project management for this interesting project involve? The usual things like coordinating with consultants, managing the tenders, making recommendations to the clients, sending reports and things like that. So who manages the actual construction? Oh, that will be the contractor's job, Rajesh replied. And then he went on to describe in detail what project management in India meant. By the time he had completed his monologue, I realized that the job was certainly very different from what I thought I had signed up for. This was a paper pusher's job, whereas I was a man of action. Paresh had told me during the interview that I would be the project manager for a large project, a very large project, in fact. To me, it had meant that I would be leading that project. The contract has not been signed yet, so I cannot tell you anything else, Paresh had told me. I had been lured by the idea of working in Pune and living with I and Baba. In the process, I seemed to have made a huge mistake. But this was just the beginning of a series of disappointments. Where's Paresh? I asked. Paresh will visit the project site on Saturday for the weekly meeting. He meets Ashok Desai, our team leader. And how big is our team? I asked. There'll be 6 of us. 3, including myself, already sit at the site. You're the 4th. 2 more will join next month once the office is ready. I was used to working out of construction trailers and sometimes even my car. But what Rajesh told me next sounded alarming. For now, we all sit in a meeting room, he said. What about a phone, laptop and internet connection? I asked. You will get them in a couple of weeks' time. It's a standard procedure. By now, we had driven past the racecourse road and we were on the Pune-Solapur road. Only one lane of the 6-lane highway was operational due to construction work. The construction work you see here is BRTS, that is the Bus Rapid Transit System, Rajesh remarked. And then he continued. Some traffic consultants had sold the idea to the city leaders that a dedicated lane for public transport buses would be the perfect solution for the city's traffic problems. The consultants had even taken a few of these leaders to some cities in Europe to show them how the system works. Now, the Pune Municipal Corporation has become a believer in this BRTS. I thought that this would only provide a fig leaf to the otherwise exposed transportation system in the city. And the BRTS was actually a BS. Ironically, my current job would also be providing a fig leaf for my career. I had accepted the job thinking that I would be working with Kevin Mervyn Moses, a highly respected Chicago-based real estate consulting firm. I had worked with them when they were developing a mall on the south side of Chicago. But KMM were investors in that project, and here they were the project management consultants. That made all the difference. All of a sudden, I recalled a line that Rajesh had mentioned. Paresh will visit the project site on Saturday for a weekly meeting with Ashokji. Rajesh, what's with this weekly meeting on a Saturday? Why does Paresh want a meeting on a weekend? Amol, my friend, this is India. Construction work goes on 7 days a week, and we work 6 days a week, yaar. By now, it was more than evident that I had not asked the right questions during my interview, and I was about to pay a very heavy price for my mistake. My dreams of spending a quiet weekend and quality time with I and Baba would not be realized, nor would be my plans of meeting my friends or exploring new places around Pune. I had even dreamt of driving to Lonavala on a rainy Saturday morning. All of a sudden, all these plans seemed to have vanished into thin air. Throughout my career, I had worked 5 days a week and I really valued my weekends. I was also jet-lagged, hungry, tired and now full of remorse. I wanted to go home and fly back to Chicago, but that was not an option anymore because I had committed to staying in India for 1 year. The air conditioning in the car provided little relief from the afternoon heat, and in a lame attempt to console myself, I said to myself, it's only for a year. Ashok Desai, affectionately known as Ashokji, was a man in his mid-50s. Rajesh had aptly described him as a man with a receding hairline and an increasing waistline. Ashok was a loud, demanding and a short-tempered person. He was a civil engineer who had studied in England. I worked abroad for several years before returning to India in the mid-1980s. Those were interesting times then, Ashok told me when we met for the first time. I had no experience of working in India. The project site where I worked was 50 kilometers away from my home. I would take 2 hours each way, that too after changing 3 buses. 1 year later, I took up a job with the Bombay Municipal Corporation. Fortunately, I knew Marathi very well. That's why I could get a government job. Being a Mumbaikar Gujju helps, he said with a sense of pride. A Mumbaikar Gujju? I was a bit perplexed. Yes, a Gujju from Mumbai is different from a Gujju from Gujarat. I could sense a hint of arrogance in his tone. As far as I knew, a Gujju from Mumbai spoke in the same tongue as their northerly brethren. The only difference was that a city lad and a country bumpkin would utter the word "Kemcho" in different dialects. You go to Gujarat and then you will understand, he said to me as I went to meet the fourth member of our team. Sachin Nair had a thick set of hair that could easily require an entire bottle of parachute coconut oil. Looking at the shine in the hair and the strong aroma of coconut oil that filled the air, he probably did use an entire bottle. He had recently finished his decade-long tour of duty in the Gulf, where he had worked as the head of design for a plumbing contractor. For people from Kerala, or Mallus as they are affectionately called, working in the Middle Eastern countries is an almost non-negotiable rite of passage. Sachin was also a resident skeptic who was not at all impressed by Apogee developers. "Mark my words," he said, "these people will be throws off the project once they have learnt our systems. I would be surprised if we last more than a year." His prophecy would be tested in a few months' time. When I returned to our makeshift office, I realized that we were sitting around a table in a room that was smaller than my office in Chicago. This place would continue to serve as our office throughout the summer. Project plans that I was so keen to see would not be ready for another 2 to 3 months. "We are getting paid for doing nothing?" I asked Ashok. "We are mobilized at the site as per our contract. Let us leave it at that," he said. Instead of sitting in the room and getting bored to death, I began to complete the rest of the forms that Sudha had given me. I was required to open an account with HSBC for my salary. I already had a HSBC account in the United States, so I thought that opening an account in India with them should not be a problem. After a while, I was tired of providing the same information over and over again. "It is 6 p.m, time to go home," Sachin said as I was completing the last form. Every auto driver refused to take me to Koth Road, which was at the other end of the town. One driver demanded twice the money that one would normally have to pay. "Meter ka double," he told me. I recalled an old trick from my college days. I used to split the journey, that is, take one auto to a halfway point and take a different one from there. I asked one of the auto drivers to take me to the railway station and he readily agreed. My plan seemed to have worked. There was no demand for an extra fare. The rickshaw breezed through the otherwise crawling traffic and dropped me off near the railway station. An hour later, I was sitting in another auto. This time we were headed for Koth Road. It was 8 p.m. by the time I reached home. The trip back home had cost me 200 rupees and taken me 2 hours. By then I had completely forgotten about Lalit's invitation for the pav bhaji. My first week at work flew faster than I had thought. For most of the day, we would sit around the table, walk around the project site, or have several cups of dark and sweet tea, what they call as kadak meethi chai. Ashok would sometimes spend half a day meeting the developers. Rajesh would be on the phone nearly all the time, and Sachin would draw caricatures of the people he knew. I sometimes wondered why he was wasting his talent sitting here in this office. I recalled what my friend Rohan had told me as he was driving to drop me off to O'Hare Airport a week before. "Watch out for your first month when you go to India. There will be no work to do. You will not get a computer, a phone, nothing. You will only have paperwork to complete." I had moved to India in 2002 to work with the largest software company in India. But they had not given me a workplace or a computer for the first 6 weeks. I used to sit at a desk that was not even my assigned location. Somebody was on leave and I was just a squatter. When I asked my vice president about this, he simply told me that my desk and computer would take time to arrive. They had ordered it. He had given me books on Java programming and some manuals to read. It was a sheer waste of time. I was so frustrated that I was back in Chicago in less than 6 months. When I emailed my experience to Rohan, he wrote back, "Some things have not changed in India." Saturday arrived faster than I had expected. By now, I was desperate to talk to Paresh. After reaching the office, I learned that there was a team meeting and everyone was supposed to go to the nucleus mall office. I wondered, why didn't anybody bother to inform me? Apparently, it was an all-hands-on-deck meeting. I had not received the notice because my 2 weeks of standard procedure had not been completed. But somebody could have informed me. The company had not provided me with a cell phone so far, but Rajesh and Ashok had my home phone number and also Baba's cell phone number, which I was using at present. They could have at least called me, but all this thinking was of no use. By the time I reached the office around 10:30, I was an hour late and 100 rupees poorer. The meeting had ended and a group of people were chatting in a corner of a meeting room. I saw that Rajesh was listening attentively to a man who sported a neatly trimmed silver goatee. "Here comes Amol. Amol meet Ganeshji. He will be joining our team from Monday." "How has your first week been so far?" Ganesh asked me as we shook hands. "Kind of interesting. Everyone wants to know who I am and why I have returned to India. It is as if I am a new exhibit in the museum or a new animal in a zoo," I replied with a smile. Ganesh smiled back at me. His arms and neck were tanned, rather burnt by days of working in the harsh sunshine. He reminded me of my uncle, who was a civil engineer himself and had spent his entire working life building highways. "I did not know we had a meeting today," I said to Rajesh, as Ganesh left us to meet others. "The meeting invite was sent to everybody. How come you did not get it?" Rajesh said, sounding surprised. "Because I don't have a computer, or email access, or a phone for that matter," I said, trying not to let my irritation become evident. "Arey yaar, I wish I knew. Nahi to call kar deta," Rajesh remarked casually. But Rajesh knew my situation very well, and had he genuinely cared, he would have called me. "Where's Paresh?" I asked him. "He just left. He had to attend an important meeting." I immediately reached for my phone and called Paresh, but his phone was switched off. "Paresh's number has changed. Wait, let me call him," Rajesh said. "I didn't know that his number had changed," I said. My face showed my surprise. But by then, Rajesh was nodding his head several times and repeating, "That's great. Thanks. He was grinning from ear to ear when the call ended. "Yaar, he will call you on Monday. By the way, the bonuses have been very generous this year." It was 7 p.m. by the time I reached home. I asked me, "How was your day?" "Fine, except that I'm tired of the commute." I could sense the irritation in my reply. Buying a car was becoming imperative. My first missteps had caused me enough troubles.
Thank you for listening to NRI Now Return to India by Amar Vyas. To learn more about Amar, you can visit his website amarvyas.in, or to check out this book on Amazon, visit Amar's Amazon author page. The links will be added in the show notes.